Chapter 71 of I, Mary MacLane, by Mary MacLane. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Lynne Thompson. Chapter 71 The Subdivided Cell. Tomorrow. When I was 20, I was one strong cell firmly, primly, closing many little cells different from each other, but each greenly intact. When I was 30, the cell had burst in dusty, worldly winds and loosed the little cells. Those in turn had subdivided, losing strength by the cellful, but gaining in shadowed truth by a roundabout road. And they showed me my fates and inevitablenesses as in a broad wrecked field, misty but plain to view. And thus I see me in the subdivided cells, a piece of a normal woman, a piece of a child, a piece of a poet, a piece of a lesbian woman, a piece of a writer, a piece of a jester, a piece of a savage, a piece of something someway brave, a piece of a student, a patriotic American, a lump of tiredness. My strength is in knowing the evil from the good and the false from the true in it. My weakness is in wildly, waveringly inclining toward the false. Except for love of my country, I am ardenter, determinder, stronger in my falseness than in any of my shadowy truth. End of chapter 71. Chapter 72 of I, Mary MacLane, by Mary MacLane. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Lynne Thompson. Chapter 72 Food and Fire. Tomorrow. The first beauty in my life is John Keats. In John Keats is my faith in some resurrection. Without John Keats, human nature feels to be something broken, menacing, unspeakably despicable, and lost in the shade. With John Keats the lights break across it and reflect the blazing yellow sun again from eyes and foreheads and fingers and shining hair. There are world and human things which it thrills me to think about and dwell on. Nathan Hale on the British gallows, the charge of Pickett's Confederate infantry at Gettysburg, Henry V, prince among kings and men, at Agincourt, Charlotte Corday in prison, Columbus with his felon crews sailing westward, Susan B. Anthony, a woman made in a strange still heroic splendor half incredible, Alexander Hamilton, Arnold Winkelried, the sea-worn Pilgrim women disembarking into bitter Novemberness. Those thrill me because they are brave persons and brave things full of idealistic strife. But they still are made of very struggling garbled world stuff. They are mere human fabric. Till I think of John Keats, and at once they grow informing and eternal. In his light the detailed world burns and glows. John Keats. John Keats. Other poets have written nightingales and Grecian urns and sonnets and mirth and passion things. But he wrote them in his glorious and wistful pain. He wrote the sweet headaches of his spirit into his delicate beaten gold verse, the precious fevers of his mental veins, the bone aches and muscle aches of his thoughts, the darling skin damps and palm damps of his divine fancy, all in the song of his lilied youth. There is no poet but writes his poetry out of inner travails and immense wistfulness. But they all write just beside their travail, not in it, just beside their wistfulness, not with it. A poet who feels the throat of his soul aching and swollen and inflamed writes, not just that astral diphtheria, not till another time, but instead the fine smothering of a hope, perhaps, the oblique suffocating of a love. A poet whose brain hands throb with some horrible dulcetish tiredness from handling the heavy bright tools of his craft writes instead the throbbing of his brain soles and brain insteps from walking small, odd, hard, rutted daily ways. It rouses me, it heats my eyeballs with salty honeyed warmth as I read, but it is not John Keats, who writes his own immediate magic sickness in perfect sudden obvious blood warm golden now. It is always old fashioned ailment worn of ages. The drowsy ache of the nightingale goes 1,000 years back and 1,000 years to come. The restless ecstasy of 1,000 nightingales, one for each who reads, in any age, all ages. Long, long after the jeweled English language is gone, dead as Homer's, Keats's nightingale will flutter lyric winged in the nervous jeweled lovely now. Weep for Adonis, wailed the differently lovely Shelley. He is dead. But he isn't dead. He is terribly living, passionately living. Each day of my life I feel him living. He breathes close to me, pantingly, like a swimmer breasting waves or a playing child in a summer day. John Keats. Just beneath my skin, he is my god of the world, my fetish and my lover. He has been my lover for 7 gold years. He is the first beauty in my flawed futile life. He is the most beautiful thing in the living and dying world. John Keats. John Keats. In everyone else I can feel mixed motives, tough tangled silk threads of self woven into wonderful wefts of days and deeds. In everybody, from Iscariot to Toussaint Louverture, from Jeanne d'Arc to Victoria Woodhull, from Paul of Tarsus to Aaron Burr. Only John Keats stands out alone, a true breathing poet, an inmost heart bleeding outward. The lyric poet is the true poet. The lyric poet achieves no end in his art. He turns fragments of light and life into terms of beauty and sends them flying forth on flaming word wings which translate the small human flesh they brush by into delicious flesh of gold, flesh of petals, flesh of fire. But he makes no morals, teaches no lessons, finishes nothing. It's as it should be. Nothing is finished. The mixed world is all unfinished, a glorified mistake. The race is a millionfold mistake. Lives it, breathes it, battens on it, coarsely and finely and lamentably and musically and bravely, so that all poetry which wanders from the lyric is only a play or a picture or an airship or a cause which aims at fait accompli, attaining an object. It is limited and man-made. Its beauty is lopped off like boughs and branches after a storm. Its wings are clipped. Its distanceless spaces, little and large, are visibly engineered by mathematic hands. But the lyric poetry is the true, luminous and bloody interpreting of humanness. John Keats wrote by the lights of his living, and he lived all his days in joyous lyric anguish. Once he wrote, "Ever let the fancy roam, pleasure never is at home." It is a factful of himself, lawless, radical and non-civilized, a gleam in the mixed world. It is everybody, poets, burglars, nursemaids, everybody. He wrote it in 100 other ways, but it is all in that. It is the lyric epitome of every day. Pleasure never is at home. And hard melodies are sweet, he wrote, but those unheard are sweeter. There spoke the wild, delicate wiseness of his brain and the passionate, delicate wonder of his heart. John Keats. John Keats. But everything he wrote, the Grecian urn itself, is immeasurably less lyric than himself writing it and being it. He is rich, bright, wet, living lyric for this me in this now, though he has lain dead in Rome nearly the full 100 years. My garbled life and my thinking hunger feed upon him. He was the one human one who walked on in the way before him, not around the jagged little stones and icy little pools that were in it, but straight on through them all. Though his lyric feet were quivering, shuddering, sensitive beyond knowledge of commoner feet that walk around. It fattens my leanest self to keep that in my constant remembrance. The thought of his brave, radiant loveliness reassures me to myself by the hour. I am futile, but he is mysteriously, omnipotently useful, and I catch some of it from him. I am half full of vanity, but he is of a lustrous, priceless vanity himself that justifies mine and all the world's. I am fearing and false, but he is so brave, so true to infinite form, that by it he leavens the lump of the whole world's mendacious cowardice. My brain is full of wilding darknesses, snarled and knotted gifts and penchants, but into his strong brain the strong fresh yellow rain-washed sun shines straight down, through the wide twin brightness of his eyes. I look down into his eyes, twin public wells. He belongs publicly and privately to all this mixed mad world, and anyone may look. I look into that titanic vibrant brain, and mine catches some of it. A blessed and precious disease. Oh, a rare disease. My heart feels strange and tired and dead, a bit of Dead Sea fruit. But his heart, warm and real and boundlessly unsatisfied, is always the deep quick fragrant rose of this world. A hero, a poet at arms, John Keats. He has outsoared the shadow of our night, wrote that Shelley, and wrote no truer word. I have read so many of the strange and splendid things, bits of them, Virgil and Homer and Villon and Goethe and all the English poets, and prose writers like Carlyle, who in places out-poet poets, and moderner ones and the new poets, imagists and others. John Keats feels a noticeably braver thing, and always, always a little way beyond. He is purely lyric. When he loved a woman, he loved the dubious, fascinating Fanny Brawne, sordid-brained, worldly. To him a mixed, living, devilish, glowing goddess. A higher-souled woman would neither have so tortured nor so held him. He was purely lyric. He cared truly nothing for the verdicts of critics and reviewers, and in the sweet-lipped boyish beauty of his youth they truly and easily killed him. It would be like that, it had to be. He was so purely lyric. He died in the sweet, fierce, dazzling cause of beauty. I have so many thoughts, and my thoughts are always my own. There are endless written thoughts deeper than mine, finer, stronger, anything you like. But mine answer for me. No written thoughts affect them, though they thrill my reading hours. Only John Keats's thoughts can enter in and crush and cripple mine. Because everybody is a little bit like John Keats, I have a starry thin edge of faith inside me. He is food for my hunger of thought, fire for my passion of life. John Keats! He is the resurrection and the life. From my desk he gazes at me in a frame of old gold. Every day the sunset on the glass blurs his large, mournful, joyous eyes with strangest agonized sunset tears. He shows me the sweet, sweet intoxication of his lyric grief. He died young, unfinished. And oh, but it's a shivering ecstasy to think of all those lyrics in him he never wrote. The sweeter melodies unheard. End of chapter 72. Chapter 73 of I, Mary MacLane, by Mary MacLane. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Lynne Thompson. Chapter 73. The Edge of Mist and Silver. Tomorrow. Hidden somewhere in the invisible unused air plateaus is a little child, mine, who has never been born. A tenet in me is that a woman by every right and by old earthen law should, if she will, have her child, should be the warm-winged mother. I am a devil and a fantasy, a Jezebel and a wanderer in fields of inverted fungi. So I seem to me. I do not know my status. I but know my personal incidents as they happen. But I am also woman, a woman by inherence and by fact. Being woman, I am the potential mother, mother of my child who has not been born. I feel myself a fitting mother. I am bodily in good health, if not robust, yet durable, as a mother should be. I am always tired, as if from touches and weights of living, as a loving mother should be. I am warm of blood, latently savage-toothed, like a jungle mother, deadlier than the male, as a brave mother should be. Though I have no child, I have an ancient right in my child, and I want my child. My child is, but has not been, born. Merely to want my child makes me a fitting mother. My child often is realer to me than books I read and walks I take and the friend who writes me frequent letters. Sometimes my child is a soft pink baby smelling of rainwater, milk and flowers, lying close to the curves of my breasts in the hollow of my arms, feeding soft insistent baby hunger and feeding soft strong living hunger of my kissing mother lips. More often my child is a little happy voiced fellow, my small brave boy 3 years old. He clings to my skirt with his sweet tiny hand as we hurry along a frosty pavement in an early December morning. We live in New York in a little common quiet apartment and are gratefully poor, and I work in a factory for a little weekly wage for the living of my little fellow and me. Every day in the early morning we go out to a corner bakery to buy a long crisp loaf of French bread for breakfast. And in the December morning my heart contracts with a sort of happiness and a sort of grief at the sound of little feet in stout shoes, yet frail shoes, pattering gaily along beside me on the frosty flagstones. We start out hand in hand. His small hand is wonderfully firm and virile, but presently I let go his hand as we hurry along, to feel it instantly clutch the folds of my work skirt. It pulls and drags at my waistband and my heart together with twisted sweetness that makes me ache from head to foot. "Mother, wait," he says in his happy voice. "Wait for me." But I hurry faster. Always I hurry faster when my happy brave little fellow cries, "Wait, mother," for the sweet feel of that dragging at my mother skirt. More often my child is the little girl 6 years old of the shy eyes and the sun-kissed hair and the firm child mouth, full of high temper and strong will. All over her is need and demand of her mother to guard and adore and cherish her every moment of her life. We are together in a country field with oak trees in it, and poplars, and daisies, and bluebells, and other field flowers, and it is overgrown with long, coarse, fragrant wild grass. The noonday sun is bright hot, and I bring my child there to dry her hair, for I have newly washed it with a square of white soap and a porcelain bluebird bowl. The feel of her small, round, wilful head was marvellously fulfilling in my cupped hands. She wanders around in the hot brightness through the tall grass, gathering the hardy, scentless field flowers with her little brown fingers, and she shakes back her beautiful thick short damp curls. I sit on a flat stone like a Sioux squaw and watch her. The grass brushes her bare legs. The magic sun, mixed with a faint cool breeze, plays upon her head. The tragic, delicate music of rustling poplar leaves comes down from tree tops and catches her in a fairy song net. She is always very new, very incredible, my child. She looks towards me with her shy, radiant eyes, and she says, "Mother, look, my hair is nearly dry." Her hair is thick and heavy. In my experienced subdued mother wisdom I know it will not be dry for an hour. I feel the damp of her hair roomishly keen all over me, a menacingness for me to guard her from, a dear anxiety, an ancient mother note in the long human gamut of sounds. It is precious wearing racking colorful romance to be her mother. Each Mother Day holds golden blue foreboding. Each Mother Day holds thin insistent golden purple sorrows. Each Mother Day holds deep golden gray care, incessant and absolute, an aching wealth of beauty, no more but no less than the damp of her hair in the noonday field. My child, herself incessant and absolute, warm, pure, palpitant gold of my life. Some way realer than books I read and walks I take, my child clamors to be born. My child will never be born to any other woman. While she hovers and flutters on the edge of mist and silver, a border edge, there are 10,000,000 fertile hot milk teeming bodies of women, each ready to gather her in and wrap her in delicate sweet flesh. 10,000,000 other children hovering on the edge will drop off into the 10,000,000 matrix cups, each woman mysteriously a fitting mother, so only she wants her baby, though she be besides a thief, or a traitor, or a weakling, or a murderer, or a harlot, or a drunkard, or a fool. Let them come, the 10,000,000. The chrysalid children are clamoring always for their birth, a wide melody unheard. But my child will never drop over the edge to any woman but me. She called with veiled and dazzling flames of eagerness for her birthday, but she will await my maid readiness through a long night, though it should last till the daybreak of another age. Dimly I weep for her, my needing me child. I weep that she must come to this richly cursed me, but I weep more that I have not got her in this sterile now, where is flawed passionate wealth of intangible life stuff, but no small willful head of hair to wash, no little fellow's feet on December flagstones, and sweet dragging at my skirt, no soft pink baby hunger. It is hunger I feel from her. I feel her always hungry where she is, and I can give her no nourishing, no warming food in all my strange, unfertile passing life. It is that less than my empty arms that makes blurred unrests and writhings in my dreaming womb. End of chapter 73. Chapter 74 of I, Mary MacLane, by Mary MacLane. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Lynne Thompson. Chapter 74. A right shape and size. Tomorrow. Sometimes I fancy me married, a responsible wife, a housekeeping matron, with my window-sills full of potted plants. I have a woman quality which seems uxoresque. I am some way a right shape and size to be somebody's wife. My bodily and astral dimensions have outlines apparently suitable for something in the married woman way. The wild piquance of being myself, who but for extreme saneness would be mad, rises up and smashes that concept. But being a right shape and size, I involuntarily imagine it. Fleetingly I imagine a flat in the West 70s in New York, or a bungalow on the Jersey side, or a middle-sized house in a middle-sized town in Middle West Illinois, whichever might happen, with me set marriedly down in the midst of it like a suitable maggot in a suitable nut. Suitableness, diametrically opposed to romance, is its keynote. I fancy me walking about my married house mornings after breakfast in a neat linen dress and high-heeled satin slippers, snipping dead leaves off my window-sill plants, dusting bits of porcelain, giving my maid some tame household directions. My body looks slender and supple and newly married and in the drawing in the linen house dress. The geometric gods regard me with immense satisfaction as being an exact proven theorem. I go to the telephone to order some little neck clams and some vermouth cocktails for dinner, and a roast and some Brussels sprouts and the assemblings of a salad, and in it I am ingrainedly domestic, dreadfully useful, a strong pillar of the vast good nice world. Afternoons I go out to a modiste's to fit a gown, or to a mild bridge party along with other suitable women, or to a matinee with a suitable neighbor. Everything is perfectly right in my insides and in my thoughts. My thoughts run in little troughs in which there is no leakage or deviation, thoughts of a dreadful niceness, thoughts which ever presuppose potted plants on my window sills. Evenings I go out with my husband, or sit around with my husband, or take leave of him for a few hours at the hall door. My husband would be the sort of man that is called a good scout. And he would have married me not for my wistfulness or wickedness or weirdness, but for that I am a proper shape and size, with a smooth proper covering of flesh, to make a suitable sizable wife. And he will be a heavy grappling anchor to hold me fast in an ocean of domesticness. Men of the genus good scout are all fiercely alike. All women, no matter what their genus, are exceptions to the rule. But men, rich men, poor men, beggar men, thieves, so only they are good scouts, are of marvellous sameness. It comes from the want of minute lifelong pinpricking care of petticoats and potted plants, a detailed intensely personal sort of pain which touches dull solid tones of individuality with vivid various spots of color. Men are made in job lots like their own cravats. Their cravats will differ in texture and color and quality and price, but each one is innately necktie. Use it as a garter or a tourniquet or a strangler's noose, it still is a man's deadly necktie. Its use may be ruined, but its necktique is deathless. Except poets and perhaps scientists, men are themselves like that. They cannot get away from the Adam, nor can women get away from the Eve. But Eve was not a type, but a somewhat pleasant human ensemble, while Adam was a type, and a sufficiently nasty one, a rotter and a welsher, doubtless the good scout type of his day. The good scout is the sort of man who, if a woman trusts him with 1/100th of her heart, will take the whole heart and twist and batter it, and read the paper and smoke his pipe and pay the bills, serenely unaware. Which is beside the point in this. For in this image all my marriedness is a thing of outer shape and size and suitableness. The odd but natural sequence is that I make an excellent wife. Excellent is the word. I keep a neat house, with no dust left in the corners, and no dead leaves on the potted plants. My husband is well looked after as to breakfasts and dinners and bodily comfort, and I am rigidly square with him, and chastely true to him. If some dinner time, as I sit opposite him in a soft pretty chiffon gown, my secret thoughts overflow their troughs, and I passionately forget the potted plants and the window sills, and want horribly to rise up and bloodily murder my husband for being such a good scout, that would be a genuinely powerless matter, a cobweb trifle, compared with my actual potent shape and size, which are so suitable for a wife. I make truly and simply an excellent wife. By God and my soul and bones, it would be honester, finer, sweeter, more comfortable to be the dirty beggar woman in the wet slippery streets. But it's facilely fancied because I am of right dimensions to be some good scout's wife. A curious subtly pitfalled world, in it my shape and size, and my weight which is also right, could betray me into being an excellent wife, and by that a lying chattel, an inexpressibly damaged woman. End of chapter 74. Chapter 75 of I, Mary MacLane, by Mary MacLane. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Lynne Thompson. Chapter 75. Ice water, corrosive acid, and human breath. Tomorrow. I have love for two towns. One is this butte that I tiredly love inside me, and the other is New York that I smoothly love with all my surfaces. It is some years, a little lump of years, since I have seen New York, and it is 2,000 miles away. So I see and feel its hard, sweet, lurid magnetism now 10 times sharper than when I lived in it. But I felt it sudden and sharp at every turn then. A surface emotion which hits one's flesh and spreads wide over one's area is more exciting than a spirit emotion which pierces inward at one tiny point. An ice shower bath on the white skin is more anguishing than an ice water drink down the red throat. The spirit emotion lives longer and works more damage and buries itself at last in proud shaded soul reserves. The surface emotion stays always on the surface and lives actively in the front of one's senses and musings. The feel of New York is a mixture of ice water, a corrosive acid, and human breath sweeping some way warmish against one's flesh. It is immensely ungentle, New York, immensely human, immensely intriguing to all one's selves. It is too big to have prejudices and traditions of locality, so it leaves its dwellers free by ones and multitudes to be human beings. In South Bend and Toledo and Beloit and St. Paul and all the tight-built inland towns they murder you with narrowness and harshness and rancorous ill will. They are scowlingly annoyed with you for making them murder you. In New York they murder you with a large soft wave of indifferent insolence. No annoyance, no friction. New York eats you as it eats its dinner, rather liking you. And my love for New York is made of liking, a plaisance of liking. Made of liking, a plaisance of liking. I like New York with a charmed restfulness for varied things in it, subways and Fourth Avenue and the river and Fifth Avenue on a sunny October afternoon, and the statue of Nathan Hale, and old cockroachy downtown buildings, and the soft rich whelming creamy boiling chocolate fragrance from the Huyler factory in Irving Place, and mostly I like it for the people in it. People, persons, people, they are human beings. In the inland towns people are half afraid of thoughts, half afraid of spoken words, half afraid of each other, half afraid of the fact of being human. In New York they are not afraid of any humanness. Even when they are in themselves craven cowardly enough to turn their own stomachs, they still turn their humanness unfearfully face outward like upturned faces of a pack of cards. An Italian organ grinder grinding out his loud fierce music in a long deep New York side street is a human organ grinder. He bestows his rasped melody widely on everybody in earshot, not individually, since all around him is a spreading world of strangers, but jointly. So it feels like. A beggar woman at the subway entrance with a whine and a dirty face and a deadly black cape and chicken coopish beggar odor is a human beggar woman. She throws out an inner savor of herself like a soiled aura on all collectively who pass her. Each and all of New York, by tolerating and owning her, partakes of her mean human essence. A stout-hearted, warm-bodied Jew factory girl, working at a hard, greasy little machine day after day, gives all New York her bit of young virtue which is hardy and heroic and unaware. The whole island of looseness and vice has an equal gift of impregnable surprising sordid purity thriving on 6s and 7s of poor dollars a week. All of it is because New York is one large condition made of human breaths and the worn scrapings of tired youth, rather than one large town made of individuals and stone houses. And in that is an odd enchantment for me, who am born and grown in the places of half fear, with an old isolated whole fear always on me. In New York I am a partaker of that smooth manner of humanness as I am of the air and the sunshine and the little black specks of coal soot, partly from choice, partly willy-nilly, partly in the sweeping unanalyzable pell-mellness of mass human nature. And it is in New York I have those strangest things of all, human friendships. Not many friendships, and not of spent familiarities, for I don't like actual human beings too much around me, but yet friendships made of the edges of thoughts and vivid pathos and pregnant odds and ends of nervous human flesh and fire. It is in New York I go to the apartment of a friend at the end of an afternoon. In the apartment are some persons having tea, men and women. The friend greets me at the door. She wears maybe a dress of thin dark and light silk, shaped in the quaint outlandish fashion of the hour. And she has shrewd kindly eyes like a Rembrandt portrait, and a worn New Yorkish Latinish brain and heart, both of which are made of steel, sparkle, and the very plain red meat of living. She says, "Hello, Mary MacLane," and clasps my hand, and we exchange a glance of no real understanding at all, but suggesting warmed challenge of personality, and an oblique sweet call of depth to depth, and of friendship which, by mere force of preference, and of our separate quality and caliber, is true rather than false. So close, and no closer, may friendship be, and friendship, withal, is closer than any love. It is the closest human beings ever come to meeting. In a New York doorway I, made in broad loneliness of self, get suddenly companion warmed at the little pleasant twisted fire of someone else. It might be so in some other town, even Beloit, but it feels only like New York to me. I go in the room where the others are, and they say, "Hello, Mary MacLane," and I drink some tea and listen and talk in fragments of half meanings, and I get warmed and half warmed and cooled and slightly scorched in the easeful unevenly heated humanness of the women and men sitting around. In the inland towns they throw their thoughts and ideas at you at tea time, inland thoughts and ideas, which hit you and then drop off like little pebbles and nuts and hard green apples. In New York they throw those things in the form of long ribbons, heated from being worn next their skin, which fly out and wrap around your skin, pleasantly or foolishly or fancifully. The point of it is that nobody is afraid of that. It is nothing fulfilling, nothing satisfying. It is merely human. It is half lyric. It reassures me as a person. It makes me feel human in all my surfaces, which are harder to humanize in everybody than any deepest deeps. And it is therefore, with all my surfaces, smoothly and restfully, I love New York. End of chapter 75. Chapter 76 of I, Mary MacLane, by Mary MacLane. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Lynne Thompson. Chapter 76. Rhythm. Tomorrow. Now and again I think I catch some truth by the sweat of its rhythm. Often I read the Beatitudes in the Sermon on the Mount, and feel their truth in the blood-sweating tune of their rhythm unspeakable and ecstatic. The prophet Christ believed himself divine, and was all rhythm in his utterances, and so sounds true as the scheme of digestion and the laws of hygiene. He said, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." Everybody who has tried it knows that to be true with the flawless rhythmic truth of health and illness. Mourn frightfully a day, and the next day will be a day of soothed warmth and quiet, like a grateful pitiful heat current in the breast. Mourn a week, and that will come the week following. Mourn a year, and the next year will be the year of peace. For anguish, peace. For peace, anguish. It never fails. The great thing lacking in Christ, the sense of humor, permitted his perfect personal rhythm. Humor oddly wants rhythm. The human race is made in rhythm, like its beating heart. But humor is an extra. Everybody is so full of lies that humor, an extra, always wonderfully appetizing and out of season and inexplicably God-given, feels like a great keystone of the race. So it is, but in a lying race. And Christ in his beautiful dual role would lack humor. As a God come among a human race to save it, knowing it as he did, his measureless worldly wisdom being paramount even to his gentleness, his mind and his personal tenor could be set only in intense terrific gloom. The rhythm in the Beatitudes is equal rhythm of sense and rhythm of sound, rhythm of music and rhythm of meaning, equally half and half. The most rhythm thing in it is, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. I feel its soft prickling just under my skin. Rhythm, rhythm and ecstasy. I have read it many times since I was a child, till I know it in my brain, in my soul, in my hands, in my breast, in my throat, in my forehead, in my gray eyes, in my aching left foot. I know it and feel it by its rhythm. There is barbarous justice in it. It cuts everybody off from seeing God. Pure in heart I take to mean pure in motive. A fool has an equal chance with a philosopher, a harlot with a horse thief, a nasty rag picker with a small sweet child. But none is pure in motive. Of other persons I don't judge, but me I know to be murderously unpure of heart. If I could open a window or unlock a door with only the simple mechanical motive in the act, but I can't. There's a romantic impurity in even the look of my hand as it touches the window sash or the door key. There's a pervasive delicate infusion of impure motive all over me, soul and bones, as I perform the act. It is one curse in the necklace which God himself bestowed on me so long ago. It is not my fault that I am unpure in heart, and it is not God's. It is a comfort to me that I can reason out that it is not God's fault. He knew I needed the necklace and each blue-green stone in it to rhyme and balance me. In the wide surprisingness of the universe everything will be rhymed and balanced. In me, being savagely complex, that balancing took a bit of doing. Hence my unusual necklace. It comforts me that I can reach that analytic point. It leaves me a lightning conviction that God is worth seeing. And if a day dawns for me when I can open a door with no ulterior motive, thinking only of the door and the fine small muscular power of smooth hand and supple wrist given me to open it, thinking only that I want to get the door open, then back of that door I know I shall see God. It is so written in that barbarous blood-sweating worldly rhythm on the mount. End of chapter 76. Chapter 77 of I, Mary MacLane, by Mary MacLane. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Lynne Thompson. Chapter 77. A prayer feeling. Today. So it is finished, and I have oddly failed. I have slyly succeeded and oddly failed in equal degree. I have failed because I am too cowardly and too weak and too dishonest to write certain bruised and self-accusing places in my soul and in my heart and in my mind, which rightly come in the scope of this. There are the stern and delicate voices one closes one's ears against. There are the starry, grimy actualities one drops from one's hands. There are the thoughts one does not think. Yet, they too are in it, hanging cobwebbish on my wordings and colons. It is not a strong tale, and that is very well. This book is less I written than it is I myself. And just beneath the skin no person is strong. Not Theodore Roosevelt, true fearless American. Not Bonaparte, splendid tyrant. Not Joan of Arc, titanic martyr. They are strong in their depths and strong on the outside. So are many others. So am I think. But just under the skin all who are human are roundly weak. Roundly weak, every one. And with that, in my case, false. This primarily is the picture of one who is made false. False from her fingertips to her innermost concept. It is belike because of that this, as itself, oddly fails. It is as if I have made a portrait, not of me, but of a room I have just quitted. My gloves are left on a chair. My hat is on a couch. My taken off shoes are left on the floor. My faint smelling handkerchief is dropped by the door. My round ribboned garter is hanging on the doorknob. My breath is in the air. My grief is on the walls, clinging like smoke. My flat despair is on the petunia leaves in the window. My fragrant horridness lingers in the curtains. I am not there, but I have just quitted that room. Therein I have slyly succeeded. My feeling at my book's end is a prayer feeling, both frantic and quiet. God have mercy on me, but not unless you want to. And I feel barbarous and utterly solitary. Solitary from here to Jericho. Solitary from here to the cool stars. There comes off the grim gray east hills a soft whelming taste of sunset, bloody and full of human marrows. And I feel a need of great pain or great sin to make and break me soul and bones. End of chapter 77. End of I, Mary MacLane, A Diary of Human Days by Mary MacLane. Read by Lynne Thompson in the Willamette Valley.